You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, this is Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the only things that makes official. Welcome to the big show. As always, the Chris Voss Show is a family loves you, doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as the rest of your family, because we love you. We're here to make your lives better and make you smarter and share with you the stories and journeys of life. People have a myriad of different opinions and voices and stories, and there's something for everything is on the Chris Voss Show. We always call it the Netflix of podcasting, because you can binge anything you want on the Chris Voss Show and find whatever topics you do, and you can choose or just play them all. You'll learn shit. I guarantee it. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Anyway, we have an amazing young man on the show. We're going to be talking about his book, How It All Ends, part of the White Horse series of books that he's done. He's a multi-book author. It's out November 2nd, 2023. Dr. Richard Ruhling will be joining us on the show. He is a doctor, MPH, board certified internal medicine, and he taught health science at Loma Linda University. NIH gifted his school $40 million for study to learn why the community lived about 7 years longer than other non-smokers. The study supports the belief of a vegan and vegetarian diet. Many diseases are reversible if you eat wisely. Yeah, who knew? What you put in your mouth might make a difference. Welcome to the show, Doctor. How are you?
So good to be with you, Chris. I really am happy for this opportunity to share.
We're happy to have you here to share as well. Give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Okay, the website is health, 3 words everybody wants, health, happiness, and destiny.com. It offers the books, by the way, and this is not about making money. It's just trying to make it available. The How It All Ends that you mentioned is about $2.95, less than a bag of popcorn, but this is popcorn for the mind for what's coming.
Popcorn for the mind. So give us a 30,000 overview. What's in your book? And then I think we got your .coms, right?
Okay. Favorite author of mine, who, by the way, was responsible for that $40 million. She wrote so progressively about health. Actually, 100 years before the Surgeon General made the link to lung cancer, she said tobacco was a malignant poison. And she also said she did not want drugs taught in her school. She wanted for natural remedies. And today, adverse drug reactions are really a leading cause of illness and death. So she was very progressive. She credits God with giving her that information because of a childhood injury, and she didn't go beyond the 3rd grade. But she committed her life to God, and God showed her, I believe. Actually, she saw 9/11 before 9/11 came along, 100 years early. She described tall buildings in New York City, warranted to be fireproof, but consumed as if made of pitch. The fire engines could do nothing to stay the destruction. And that's in a volume 9, page 11, 12, and 13 of her testimonies for the church. But, so interesting that she was, I believe, truly gifted because of the injury that made it impossible for her to go beyond the 3rd grade. But she had the information, and she had help in putting the books together and things like that.
Why didn't she warn us, eh? It would have been nice to get a warning on that one.
I think she did. Actually, she saw an earthquake at Loma Linda when they hijacked her school to teach pharmacology and get AMA accreditation. She had a vision of an earthquake in which buildings, great and small, were falling to the ground. And I think Southern California is going to get it. They say, scientists say anytime. I don't think anytime. I think God has appointed times. And I'm looking for in the near future, May being an important month in Bible prophecy, when Christ said, nobody knows the day or hour, but as the days of Noah. That's how he finished the sentence. And in Noah's time, the flood came in the 2nd spring month. That would be May. And I'm believing that we could see serious stuff even next week. I'm happy for this opportunity to give you a heads up. And
What do you, is there anything particular you anticipate going on in May? Because I'm going to skip paying my bills if I can get out of them.
Don't be in a hurry to pay them. But anyway, specifically.
They got to have due dates, though. That's kind of the problem.
Yeah. This looking at it from Christ's perspective, I believe he gave these clues for a what I call a 9/11 event, because in Numbers 9, verse 10 and 11, there were provisions for Passover as a time of judgment, but in the second month of May. And so it's Passover timing. I actually saw the new moon in the sky on Monday night a week and a half ago, so that this coming Monday night, I'm planning, this is just me and neighbors maybe, if they want to come for an evening of spiritual emphasis, we're going to have grape juice and crackers, which is like communion,
Okay.
But also, when Christ asked his disciples to watch and pray with him, I think they lost the kingdom by sleeping. Because if they had stayed awake and had not gone to sleep, they could have been strengthened to say, when the Jews brought the Roman soldiers, they could have said, hey, we're going to trial with you. And when the Jews accused Christ of going to tear down their temple and build it in 3 days, the disciples should have said, no, he's talking about his body. Come out Sunday morning, you'll see.
Yeah.
If they said that, there would have been witnesses. They themselves would have been witnesses, and the Jews couldn't have lied. And I think Pentecost could have meant the whole nation sorry, repenting, and the kingdom could have been established. But instead, the disciples were hiding in an upper room, and it was a bad situation for them, and it was persecution because the weight was against them instead of ahead of the game. So now it's our turn, though. Coming up is our opportunity to watch and pray, and I found out how to stay awake. In Egypt, when Passover came, the Jews or the Israelites ate the Passover lamb and left nothing till morning. When I was in college, the guy who drove the choir bus to Florida could do so without sleeping by eating one peanut at a time. Okay. And eating is stimulating, but in this case, I'm talking not about literally eating lamb, but spiritually reading a book on the closing scenes of Christ's life, praying between chapters, and staying awake. So I'm looking for a knock at earthquake, which is an earthquake. I mean, a knock at midnight, which is an earthquake. I believe that's potentially in the offing from Zechariah 14, verse 2. The Lord is going to roar from Jerusalem, heavens and earth shake. And that could hit or trigger the San Andreas, which scientists say can happen anytime.
You never know. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the world, these days.
Yes, but but for the people that are spiritually interested and who are watching when he knocks, it says in Luke 12:36 and 37, blessed are those servants whom the Lord finds watching. He'll gird himself, make them sit down to eat and serve them. That's what he did at Passover on his time. And I believe high reward if we do that, basically.
Yeah, there better be,
Yeah.
There's that. So tell us about your journey. How many books have you written? I see a lot on Amazon. Tell us about how many books you've written. Kind of tell us about your library and some of the books and things you've written about.
Life is a journey, and you're always seeing things more tomorrow than you did yesterday. And I'm seeing that there's a series of events, like I'm saying, but just within the past half year, I'm seeing. I grew up as a Christian, and I sang in choruses like in high school and college. There's a Handel's Messiah, which has been sung at Christmas over the holiday times for nearly 300 years. It was 1741 when Handel wrote it miraculously in a few days. And it says that God is going to shake the heavens and the earth. And there's a date given 3 times in that chapter of Haggai 2. And it makes you think about the third temple, but I don't believe they're going to build the third temple. I believe that the Muslims in Zechariah 14, verse 2, it says nations will be gathered against Jerusalem. I believe neighboring nations, they're surrounded, Israel is, by like a little postage stamp by Muslim hostile forces. And I think they're going to be overwhelmed. And if so, the earthquake is impending because it says the Lord will roar from Jerusalem, heavens and earth shake. I think that's after. It doesn't say so, but I think it's after they take Jerusalem. And it will chase the Muslims out. But the Jews that are there, according to a Messianic rabbi, they're just there for free land from the UN. They don't really care about God. So God's going to let the Muslims take the Jews out, and then God's going to take the Muslims out with the earthquake. And then the earthquake is the knock for the wedding.
Oh, wow.
Because the only other place where Christ knocks in the New Testament is Revelation 3:20. Christians think gentle Jesus is always knocking at my heart's door, but how will we know if he's really knocking at everybody's heart's door? I think it's an earthquake, because the church where he knocked ended in an earthquake in Asia Minor. The city of Laodicea was destroyed with an earthquake. So I've talked with a professor of Old Testament theology. He agreed that yes, the Hebrew word for knock also includes a severe meaning, could be an earthquake. So I believe we're in for a huge earthquake, and that's the knock. And if we're ready immediately, which, by the way, is my book that I have, Earthquake and Seven Seals, for Christians that are really into it, that would be a second book that they'd really like to get and understand.
Tell us about your history, upbringing. How did you discover religion, get involved with it, and all that interesting stuff?
I had a good upbringing. I had a good dad, and I said when I was about 5 years old, Daddy, I want to be what you are, but why aren't you a fireman? I thought that would be exciting, saving people. And
why are you a fireman, Dad? Quit your day job.
He was a doctor, and he laughed, and he took me on house calls, and I could see that people really appreciated him.
Yeah.
I decided being a doctor would be okay. And and when I was in high school, I gave my heart to Christ and decided I could be a missionary doctor, actually. And I have answered a call to Africa, but it didn't work out. So I took some public health and plans to go to Africa. But the dean, when the call didn't work out, the dean encouraged me to take internal medicine and come back and train other doctors to go to Africa. So I liked that idea. And I had a bright dean. He was really brilliant, and it was a nice experience for me teaching there. I had executives that I did executive health, did their yearly checkup. And I had one executive say that sugar bothers joints. Another said cheese bothers joints. Another said meat gave him arthritis. These were smarter people than most. But when I got headaches, I couldn't figure it out. Couldn't see a relationship. But when I left Loma Linda, I went into practice with 5 other doctors, and one was an allergist, a member of the American Academy of Environmental Medicine. This was a side stream. This wasn't mainstream. But this guy tested me. I saw the parking lot was always filled for people who wanted to see him. I said, how many people with headaches could you help? He said about 9 out of 10. And I said, test me. And he told me some foods. I didn't believe I was allergic, but when I stopped them, no more headaches. And the way it works is if you become allergic to a food, you get a delayed response sometimes. It isn't get the headache then. It's like when you smoke. You don't get sick when you smoke. It's a poison. But you get sick when you don't smoke if you try to quit on withdrawal. And that's the way my headaches were. I took sandwiches every day, 5 days a week to work. But on the weekend, I would get other things. My wife would say, you get bread every day. This is oat waffles for Sunday morning was a tradition. But Monday morning was headaches because I was going through withdrawal to wheat and peanut butter and things like that. This is, if people can't figure it out, change your diet, get rid of your favorite stuff and you get a lot of. Do something different for a few days, and you may find that you can get better by avoiding 100%. Now, you just can't cut down because even a bee sting, people are allergic to it. They can die from a bee sting, from a small amount of poison. So you got to quit 100%, but you can diagnose your own thing that way, or find a member of this doctor who's a member of the American Academy of Environmental Medicine. Might be a little pricey, but you can find out and not have to take drugs for high blood pressure, diabetes, and things like that. And by the way, people that get my book on the web also get a video showing how you don't need prescription drugs for a lot of this stuff. Thank you.
Yeah. Eating right and eating healthy is so important. I mean, it really is. I learned that when I lost weight. I think my audience has heard me talk about losing 100 pounds ad nauseum. But, honestly, I changing my diet, quit drinking, 10 to 15 Mountains of Dew that I was doing a day. I mean, it was insane the way I used to live and the way I used to think I needed to function. It's just insane sometimes. And it was just wild, some of the things that I would go after. But yeah, I stopped eating shit and bad food and started eating a veganese diet. Let's put it that way, because there's 150 variations of veganese. And I always piss off some vegan that you're not exactly vegan. And it's okay, veganese. But basically, I started eating clean, healthy, fresh foods, and I started feeling better. I started loving my body. My body started loving me back, giving me hangovers and headaches and. I went from living on Tylenol and Rolaids to, not, and drinking water.
Right stuff. Good
Yeah,
for
I
you.
did the right stuff. I lost weight. I actually did. And, I'm a testament to what you're talking about. What you put in your mouth is how things go weird. So there's that. So in this book, what are you hoping people will do with the data and information you're sharing? Are you hoping that they're going to either repent, or maybe do they need to, I don't know. Do we need to, if the world's going to end, do we just need to, make sure that nothing falls over in the earthquake, or what do you think there?
I see basically a series of events that starts out with, I thought, Muslims attacking Jerusalem. Now, I do believe coming up this week is an earthquake, a knock, interpreted as an earthquake. And if so, I believe that Passover is not just one night. It is actually a week of 7 days. When Israel left Egypt, they ate unleavened bread, which translates now, when Christ said, beware the leaven of the Pharisees, he meant their teachings or doctrines. And today, preachers have such smooth sermons, we don't really understand some topics that my favorite author even identifies, but the church that I grew up with, they don't get it, okay? And I'm no longer a member. I'm not denominational. I see that the 7 churches at the beginning of Revelation fade into 2 women, a pure woman standing in the light, and a harlot woman riding the beast of New World Order, which I believe is the UN. Okay, and I think Trump is against the UN, and he's getting all kinds of pressure and so on, even from the new Pope already. So I think that Trump is not great, not perfect, but God did spare his life by an inch and on his ear. Interestingly enough, in Exodus 29 verse 20, a high priest was anointed with blood on his right ear. Now, Trump doesn't look like a high priest to me, but he may be anointed for a job that I believe he will have. He's engraved, for example, in Israel on an Israeli coin as Cyrus II. And I'm saying, I don't know if he knows what Cyrus I even did yet or not, but Cyrus this is a one verse, by the way, a one verse proof that God sees the future. It's in Isaiah 45. Think of occult 45. First verse. Cyrus is named and told how he would conquer Babylon when 2 gates were left open. This was more than 100 years before Cyrus was born. Cyrus didn't know anything about the writings of Isaiah over in Jerusalem. But when Daniel was taken captive from Jerusalem, he brought the scrolls to Babylon. And when Cyrus conquered Babylon, Daniel was not killed when the king was killed, okay? But Cyrus heard good things about Daniel, and Daniel showed him his name in the sacred writings before he was born. And Cyrus had diverted the river Euphrates into a reservoir as strategy, and at night marched under Babylon's wall where the river entered, and he discovered 2 gates open. And he conquered Babylon with minimal loss of life, but when Daniel showed him his name, Cyrus was so impressed that he let Israel go free from their captivity and helped them return to their homeland and gave them a donation for their God and their temple. He was that convinced, and I think Trump, as Cyrus II, is going to do similar when the New World Order is set up, and it's going to compel people. Revelation 13th chapter, end of the 13th chapter, talks about false worship, and you can't buy or sell unless you have a mark and so on. We're getting to that time when that can happen. And I don't want to be compelled to false worship. I would rather worship as I already am believing from Scripture. And it's not about the UN or the harlot writing in Revelation 17. There's enough clues that almost anybody can figure who that is out about if you read a few verses in Revelation 17. So I'll leave the suspense and not try to spill the beans right now.
Give people, as we go out, a final pitch out on how to order your books. Is there any other books you want to talk about or feature while we're here?
I have 4 books on the website right now, and one is How It All Ends. It's just $2.95. There's a book, Megaquake 2025, which is, I think, about the San Andreas, and it's $3.95. $4.95 is Health, Happiness, and Destiny. That's a book, if you got health problems. It shows a guy that I went to New York City with the answers for heart disease because, and just to convince you, I'll say this. I had a guy come to my seminar that had 3 cardiologists. He was an executive, And they felt all that he was too risky for bypass surgery, so they had him taking 12 pills a day, but he was getting worse. I said, I think I can get you off your drugs. And I tested on a treadmill. Yes, he had big problems, but on a low-fat, low-cholesterol, vegan type of diet, he got off his drugs, started playing tennis again, and even though his cardiologist had warned him, you'll die if you get off your drugs, I think he outlived the cardiologist to about 92 or 93. And so that book, Health, Happiness, Destiny, if you got health problems, is great. Health comes from obedience to physical laws. Happiness comes obedience from moral laws. If we lie, cheat, and steal, we're not happy people, etc. That's a good book. And then my book, Earthquake and Seven Seals, I think if we're really serious about being part of Christ's kingdom and being rewarded highly, God is looking for, I think, a special group, special forces. Be all you can be for him. I think this is the book that could be helpful.
And so people can check out your other books. They're available on Amazon. What's your website that people can go to learn more about you and what you're talking about doing?
I have a blog called News for Living. It's spelled with a 4, number 4. Newsforliving.wordpress.com, and it's got a lot of stuff of physical health as well as Bible stuff. I have one called thebridegroomcomes.com, which also is more religious because that's about the wedding perils. But you've been good. I just say buy a book and start reading, and you can information there for more, and back to the website if you like.
Thank you for coming to the show. We really appreciate it. We certainly appreciate your insights and stories and journeys of life. Thank you very much, Richard.
My privilege. God bless you. Thank you, Chris. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And thanks, Ron, for tuning in.
And if we have an earthquake, we might have only used half the time. We can do it again sometime.
Yeah. Unless there's anything else you want to promote while we're here.
No, I think we've covered pretty well for right now. But if stuff happens like I'm expecting, we'll be in touch. Thanks.
We get that earthquake, definitely send out to me because we'll want to check that out.
All right,
bro. Sounds good then. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. Chris Voss, one of the TikTok and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time. And that should have us out. Thanks for the